Thank you for joining me today. This is brilliant. So
Thanks for
we
having
are
me.
we are of course talking about web stores, third-party web stores today, and I think it's a really interesting one in light of the changes that have happened recently and this whole court case and everything that's going on at the moment, or the many court cases. Um, but obviously, I think where we should probably start with this today, and then we'll go on to introductions afterwards. But just as a teaser, I think we there was an announcement earlier, well, actually last week now, about the fact that Apple lost one of these cases to Epic. And I've got a sentence from the judge. It was effective immediately. Apple will no longer impede developers' ability to communicate with users, nor will they levy or impose new commission on off-app purchases. Um, I think that's a super interesting area, and to me, that kind of suggests that brakes are coming off, and that control is diminishing slightly in some areas. Apple have, of course, said that they're going to appeal against the ruling and everything else, but straight afterwards, Tim Sweeney took to Twitter, to X, and said no fees on web transactions. Game over for the Apple tax. Which of course is obviously what everyone's thinking. Okay, look, let's with that scene set, let's start with introductions. Who are you, and what do you do for anyone who doesn't know you?
All right. So thanks for having me on the show. I'm Gil. I'm a CMO at Appcharge. Before that, I've been spent like 20 years in gaming industry. Before that, I led marketing at Overwolf. Had a startup in cloud gaming called Simplay, and I've been leading marketing at Appcharge for the past year. And yeah, like arcing back to what you said, like I think those two key words on the sentence that you brought is the effective immediately part, right? It's like
Yeah,
we've
for
been
sure.
at this and hearing promises of regulation changes for so long, only to see Apple appealing again or Google appealing and getting an injunction order and maybe like adhering to the court order, but like some draconic new terms that are not
Well,
really solving the issue.
like the reaction to the EU statements,
Yeah.
where
So
it
time
was,
after
yes,
time
you can
again,
do that, but we're gonna charge you a hell of a lot more
oh, these
for
are
doing
these are amazing new terms. How about that for 50 cents per user per year? So we've seen that for years now, right? Like, yeah, there's the promise of regulation, but like it always just over the horizon, just over the horizon. We all knew some things are coming, but now what's different about this time around? And of course they're going to appeal. They already have filed an appeal. Is the effective immediately part. So for the
Yeah.
first time ever, there's like actual like terms on the ground that publishers and developers can react to and are already reacting to. Like we saw Spotify last week releasing the same day of the announcement, Spotify releasing a new version for approval, which got approved by Apple and is already
Realistically,
live.
studios have been waiting for this, right? I mean, there's been this sort of feeling in the air for quite some time that this is a thing and this is coming. It's kind of something that people have been building in the background, or sort of integrating in the background, ready to go for when this actually becomes real, right?
Oh yeah, we've been building for like over 2 years just for this moment, and we've
Yeah.
been building a lot of new capabilities that might seem odd to some because like we gave capabilities that aren't exactly supported by regulations just for to get the ball rolling for our clients to get acquainted with our payments SDK and all of that. So for the day when the day comes of hey, there's a new way to distribute a version of your app that doesn't use Apple's payments, uses Upcharge payments for in-app. So we had all these tools laying around that like we built and planned for this moment. But to be honest, like we were kind of this is amazing. The recent court ruling
Yeah.
is a bit of an overact, a bit of like an overcorrection by Judge Gonzalez, and like we like seeing that. Probably some of that would get rolled back a bit, but
Yeah.
once this cat is out of the bag, like DTC is moving forward in ways that like we're really excited to explore with our clients.
I'm sure it'll be softened over time, probably. But what's your view on this right now? So if I'm a publisher this minute today, can I go ahead with this? Like, is this something I'm going to be penalized for in a month's time if Apple do appeal?
So let's talk about the do's and the don'ts, right? Like talking like high level in the do's. I repeat, effective immediately, right? Spotify is already live. We're sending players from the app to their website to sign up on a subscription there and back to the app again with the service on. This wasn't possible before the last ruling on Wednesday.
Mm.
So effective immediately. The time is now. But whatever you thought about doing, there's an opportunity window that needs to be seized. Like we released a bunch of new content this past week and like guiding our clients what we think and what we guide them to do is the compliant thing to do, and it's absolutely due. The time is now. Starting with the most simple to implement is you are now allowed in the US to educate your players about the existence of your web store. So if you already have a web store up and running, if you're a big studio, you have a web store with us or with someone else, or like homemade, for the first time, you can integrate banners, links, notifications,
Actually,
in-app messages in the app. That is allowed and supported effective immediately. We released a bunch of blog posts, including the Apple's emails to developers, stipulating that this is fully compliant now. That's the first thing. The second thing we recommend publishers do, and we have shared that again in our blog posts and newsletters, is to experiment with this new capability of, for the first time, you can capture some of the value in app, in iOS apps. You can send players to a hosted web checkout. So instead of like doing the regular funnel of someone wanting to buy something on an in-app store and having Apple IAP trigger, you can send them to a hosted web checkout, have them pay, and then return to the game. We released that on Friday.
How would you? Sorry, just out of interest, like how would you suggest that the publishers work with this? So in terms of, would you offer? Because I know some people are, have no issues with paying by Apple anyway, and it's probably the path of least resist, path of least. It's easy for me to say, the path of least resistance for a lot of people. So I'd imagine that people would still want to use that approach regardless. So do you offer like a question, when somebody opens the store or something, which store do you want to look at?
So again, let's talk about the do's and don'ts, right? It really depends. Like at the end of the day, we're recommending. Some of our clients are they want to be on like the exact like safe side, and some want to draw on the line. Like some want to be very aggressive and see where the chips fall. So the more aggressive ones will push for you need to let the player know that he's about to be redirected outside of the app. That's just like good UX. If you don't do that, that's like a broken experience that might have serious repercussions on the conversion rate that you want to measure anyway. But once you make perfectly clear that they're aware, for example, Spotify included small text beneath the button, you're about to be redirected to a website. Once you are like that, again, like that's a question of like how aggressive you want to implement this. What you can and cannot do. So first thing we recommend, and we share that in the mock-ups that we released and our guides on how to do this properly, is to be transparent with the players, to tell them that they're about to be redirected to the website. It could either be through text, it could either be through icons about like being redirected outside. And this all boils down to the first time you purchase, right? Like for the second time that you do this and you flow to the flow, you're going to be more aware of that. Secondly, you're right. There might be a conversion rate penalty to do this, right? We have to do this properly. We have to measure. We have to perhaps open this feature as you're rolling out a new version of the app to just one segment of your players, maybe just new players, to try to measure what is the impact on your conversion rate and completion rate per
I'm
purchase.
thinking is some people may budget by like Apple Store vouchers, for instance. They may buy like a $200 voucher at the beginning of every month, and that's their budget, and that's what they're prepared to spend on games. And if you suddenly sort of stop taking Apple payments, it kind of they're left with this budget which they can't do anything with, which could be detrimental to what you're trying to achieve in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know if stop is the goal though. I don't know if like. Yeah, we think this is an earthquake. We think like we encourage our publishers and our clients to move forward and fast with this and to just try and see how far players adopt this. But I don't think we're working towards 100% type of issue, just as with web stores, right? A lot of people like to talk about web stores, about
you're not replacing
migrate all of their purchases.
Yeah, so you're not replacing the actual store which the packages are sold through iOS. You're this is supplemental to that.
I think it's supplemental in a new way. Even the web store is supplemental to the in-app store. Always have been. It's never has been a case of let's try to migrate 100% of the purchases to the web store. It's hey, how can we introduce a new store, and then when you account the two together, the purchases on the web store and the purchases in-app, how can we make that more than 100% of what it was before? Like how can you increase the pie?
Yeah,
Same thing here. As publishers will start exploring this new type of offers in app and send players out to a hosted checkout and back. It might be all encompassing. Maybe one day, like soon, you update a version of your app, and then all individual buttons in the in-app store all send you to the web checkout and back.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it's a half and half type of thing. And then
yeah,
just like there's more value to the more frictionful flow of going to the web checkout and go back, but there's still the buy in app options there to people who prefer that.
yeah.
So it really depends on how aggressive the publisher is and how, I mean, they know their players best. So it really depends on how, what you think will resonate better with your
And
current player base.
I'm guessing, the, obviously, there's no incentivizing people to go out of store to make payments. That's still a big no, I presume.
What do you mean? Of course there is.
Yeah,
So like from the get-go, web stores, one of their biggest appeal to players is that there are better deals. It could be 20%, could be 30% more value to the same price point. But that's what got players to go through the more frictionful flow. Same thing here. If I'm showing two buttons at the same time, if I'm showing two offers in the store at the same time, one should appeal to you more to justify the added friction, to justify the added effort.
true.
So for sure, you can show and you should show reasonable, tangible incentives for the players to go and explore this new flow of buying, and also to check out the web store if that's what you want to do.
So you could, in theory, what are we saying? It's Apple's always been sort of 30% for larger companies anyway. So if you were to say 10%, 15% discount to anybody who buys from the web store, that's justified now? We can get away with that, we think?
Of course, we've always guided our clients and partners to not give discounts actually, but if you want to communicate the value of the web store, maintain the same price point but give more currency, more value, bigger prizes for the same price
Got
point.
Yeah,
So that's way more effective that we found. But yeah,
Okay.
you can show side by side, you can and communicate clear reasons and incentives to go check out this new flow. You have to be transparent and you have to be respectful, right? But yeah, we want to make sure that the value is clear.
Incredible. And do you see difficult question, I know, because it's kind of a crystal ball type thing. But do you think there is any danger? You know, you said Apple's already put in an appeal to this. Apple's quite a substantial company, of course, as we all know. Do you think there's any danger of this being a short-lived venture in terms of, you know, Apple succeeding in their appeal to this, and the effect of immediately, you know, sort of boils down to a month or so until the appeal goes through?
Yes, to be honest, we never saw an effective immediately ruling
Yeah,
to this extent in this whole legal saga. We have seen some rulings that like stipulated the date, that passing that date there's going to be new regulations, and we have seen injunction orders in appeals. There might be, and we know there is an appeal. There might be an injunction order to cease this new ruling until the higher court has a chance to address this issue. We don't know.
yeah,
But we are operating with the greatest speed and expediency and urgency to make sure that our clients have the best tools that they can, and new clients as well, to seize this opportunity while it lasts and while the window is open. We think personally, like within Appcharge, we think that probably there's going to be some rollback, but at the end of the day, there are many things that have been opened which will not be closed late
You
again.
can't close
It's
that
like
door again.
you
Yeah,
can't close the door. For example, communicating clearly to your players in app that there's a place for them to explore better value offers, like explore them and send them to the web store. We think that that's going to be a door that stays open. So we encourage urgency and
But
encourage
is
expediency
this
to
an
adopt this.
opportunity, even if that door is closed, is this an opportunity because of the effective immediately ruling where you could potentially start giving players the location of a third party store, but from the app, and actually advertising it within the app so that if anything were to happen and it were to be rolled back, they would still have access to that store in the future?
For sure. Like we keep saying, like the goal is for more FTDs, right? You want to get those FTDs, get them to know the store, get them to adopt the habit of going through the growth loop of purchasing on the store at least
Mm,
once, maybe leaving their payment details for future payments and better flows for the next ones, and do as much value grab as you can, again, while this window remains open. That's what we encourage. What is going to happen next? It really depends. Not all developers have web stores, to be honest. Like a lot of categories haven't adopted web stores fully yet because it's not as successful as some other categories. And maybe if you're a smaller tier studio, like $5 million yearly revenue, it didn't necessarily make sense to go all in on like creating a web store.
yeah.
So for these new like types of developers, we think that this new payment links product that allows you to send users from the iOS app to a web checkout, we think it's a perfect integration because it's such a simple integration. So
Mm,
a typical web store, if you do it right, like if you really invest in it, making sure that it feels and looks as native as you can to the game, takes time to get it right. Like takes
yeah.
like maybe a couple of weeks. This new integration flow, this new payment links integration flow takes a day or under a day. So it's something that developers, even small ones and mid-sized ones, could experiment with immediately and see
Yeah.
how that lands with your players.
Well, I guess effective immediately is a good sort
The
of
effective
you need
immediately,
to
like
be able to do
two
it
magical
quickly.
words, like Trump, the beautiful words in the English language. Effective immediately, beautiful words.
Amazing. Okay, so like what let's chat more about Appcharge. What sets you apart from others that are doing the same, effectively the same thing, giving an offering of a third party web store?
Yeah, so there are many players in the space where we set ourselves apart by the fact that we all come from building games. So the entire leadership team and most of the team in general, we're about like 80, 90 right now, all comes from building games. So like the biggest studios in the world, like Moon Active, Lady Cup, Larium, Play Studios, huge games. That's like the background of all of our guys here, and we fuse all of that knowledge into the products that we build. So we understand probably better than anyone monetization, player psychology, player buying patterns, and then we transmit all of that into how we build our features and how we work with our clients to help them with go to market, help them with not just building the stores but getting them adopted widely, how to maximize ARPU and LTV from players and from purchasers and all of that. And we saw a lot of success in the last 2 years, and we got like a good name in the industry, and we're really appreciative of that we've been able to be like described as the player in the space that understands mobile gaming, understands monetization.
Amazing. And of course, like we talked a bit about it at the very beginning, sort of off air. But when you're talking about running user acquisition campaigns and that kind of thing, I think it's the bit where we actually tie together, isn't it? Because when you're running user acquisition campaigns and you don't have visibility of some of these in-app purchases from web store, that can be very detrimental to your user acquisition team, who are running based on ROAS, and assuming that their campaigns are doing the best that they can be doing, and then finding that there's actually quite a gap in what the performance is.
Yeah.
And is
Yeah,
that
you're an old timer, Adam, right? Like you've been here before ATT, right? Before
I,
iOS 14.
you're saying I'm old?
No, but you've been around,
Yeah,
right?
I've got to show that this is what my wife bought me the other day. I think this sums
Perfect,
me up.
perfect mug, perfect mug.
But yes,
You've been
I
here in
was
the happy
around.
days,
I was
right?
around Facebook Canvas days, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, I knew it. You were around like the happy days. Do you remember like the days when we did like UA of like, I don't know, like $1 million, $5 million a day,
Oh, hell yes.
and everything was wonderful, and like we were hiring like crazy. All of mobile gaming was hiring like crazy, And then like someone closed the facet just to build like an ASO advertising business. And it hasn't been the same since. Like I did a lot of UA back in the day, and I saw the price rises, and I saw like the spiking costs and whatever that meant to our industry. So this is still like I don't know if that comes across, but it's still like an open wound, right? So what we see now is like, what if I told you that your well-owned UA machine today, what if I told you that all of a sudden your LTV is 20% higher? So right, like what does that mean to your CAC to LTV equation? What does that mean to the scale that you can do UA for? So you're absolutely right.
You're
MMP and
effectively
transparency.
plugging the way I see it. You're effectively plugging the leaky bucket a bit, aren't you? Like what happens to the users after they've installed. You're effectively plugging that leaky bucket in order to be able to gain more from those users.
For sure. Like UA's costs are still high, but if all of a sudden like our real LTV is better represented by the actual value that we're getting from the players, like the net value across the different stores that he purchases on, then that gives us way more visibility to make smart marketing decisions on what our willingness to pay. So I don't know like when it will happen and like be as widely adopted as I know it can be. But I think that this is potential to go back to the happy days, right? Like to the glory days of UA prior to ATT, prior to iOS 14. And we see that being adopted more by UA teams now today. But for that to happen, you have to have clear visibility and transparency on the exact net value of every single purchase the player is making post-campaign, post-install, regardless of where he's making it. So if you think of your game as it has multiple game clients, one of those game clients is actually a web store, or maybe like alternative app store versions in the future, web game version of your game as well. Yeah. So you need to have one clear source of truth where you can see all the post-install value that came from your player. And that is like what makes like smart integration with an MMP crucial. And that's why our teams are working with the AppsLar team to get that integration up to ground as soon as we can. And the AppsLar team has been great and working with us on this like very deep tech integrated integration.
Amazing. That's very good. That's very, very good to hear. How does it like? One thing that I've always thought about this is you're driving your valued payers to a website. That to me is hugely valuable if you can get them coming to the website in terms of things like cross promotion, in terms of like news, almost like newsletters, boosting the understanding of what's going on, even in your development cycles, what's coming in the future, what new features are coming through, that kind of thing. I think it gives a hell of a boost to retention if you can encapture that right and get people actually coming back. Are you thinking of any different ways that you can almost bring people to the website part of this, not just through the store? It's not just literally go make your purchase here and then leave and go back to the game.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like we spoke a little bit earlier about the cat that is out of the bag regarding D2C, and like the genie is out of the bottle. What types of doors will not get closed? I think one of those doors that will not get closed anymore is that developers understood that they must create independent channels of communication and community management with their player base. So before that, it might have been a big studio with like, I don't know, like 10 million players. But if the platforms say, hey, you cannot communicate this and that in the app, you cannot communicate this and that in push notifications, you cannot communicate this and that in in-app chats.
Yeah.
Then like all of a sudden, like as that developer, you would ask, wait, are these really my players? Or are they the platform users who happen to play my app?
Yeah.
So I think like the urgency across the industry where publishers understood that it's no longer a nice to have, it's a mandatory thing to have direct channels of communication with your players and community, spurred developers to really invest on social, to really invest on Discord communities and VIP managers and WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and all of that. And that ship has sailed. Like there's no turning back from that. Now, once you have all of that, to answer your question, yeah, we see, and when we supported that with a bunch of new products and features that we are releasing soon, we see a web store transitioning into something way bigger. We call this the game portal, and it's basically like a town hall where your players and communities can gravitate towards to find leaderboards, to find like lore, different champions in your game or different characters in your game, special offers. Of course, the web store is one of those tabs in that product, but more like LFG, matchmaking, and other things around the game. And we've built that from the feedback that we got from clients of like, hey, what comes after than the web store? And we see this as a much more holistic thing and place to gravitate towards. It gives you so much more capabilities if you can find and generate this habit of people coming back to that hub to learn the latest thing about the game, to learn new tips and tricks and guides, to find players to play with, to find communities, to get up to the latest, like you said, about like roadmap and the development team. That's cool. So that's what we see things landing, and that's why we're releasing more products around that.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, I've got one more question, which will probably be cut, but I'm interested to know your answer. Like, what do you think of Tim Sweeney in terms of what he's actually done there? And it's like double barreled. Like, there's that element to it, and then are you at all worried about what Epic are going to come out with next? You know, they've already said that they're going to do web store payments and that kind of thing. Is that a fear? Like, what's your thought process surrounding that?
So I'm a big fan of Epic Games for the last years. So like I said before, Appcharge, I spent 5 years leading marketing at Overwolf in the PC space. And we were there when like Epic Game Stores launched to compete with Steam and all the disruption it did to the mobile game, like the PC game distribution systems. And I saw the playbook that they used back then of like giving away free games and doing like this strategy is like a UA strategy to basically get new subscribers to the Epic Game Store. And they did a lot of great things there. And I saw much of that playbook being reused in how they launched the Epic Game Store to mobile in August of last year. So I really love and like I really respect the team and everything they've been doing. We think that like this new product from Epic offering web stores is a welcome change in the industry. We think it like one of the biggest hurdles that we're still facing with is education. Like we keep trying to work with our partners and we're fortunate to have very forward thinking partners and clients, but we still find ourselves educating and communicating about the values of doing web stores, communicating about the values of doing direct to consumer. And we think like more players in the industry, like that's great. I think that like Epic will bring a lot to the table, specifically around distribution, which others probably cannot offer. Personally, I think that like what the unique value proposition that we offer in our web stores is second to none. We understand mobile gaming like very few companies do. So we're confident in how we can still like offer a very compelling product, even in the post-Epic world. But I think like more competition is wonderful. There's definitely going to be some studios who will find that maybe more simplified solution suitable for them to go live quickly. And we're very happy to keep like building with the partners that we're building, like very big, sophisticated stores that connect directly to their game with API and all of those additional capabilities that we layer on top of just building a web store.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Very diplomatic as well.
I love it. I love the guys, man. Like they're so
they've done incredible.
Especially as a marketing person, like the things that they're doing, like is so inspiring that it's a great development.
Effectively making an industry come together. It's they've done incredible.
I mean, hands down to Tim Sweeney. Like I don't know if you've been following, but the guy have been flying around the world, testifying in anti-Apple cases in Australia, and then progressing regulation in Brazil, and then in Japan. Like the guy's been hard at work to make this thing happen.
Come on, even in the very first instant, pulling Fortnite from iOS at the very beginning, that's quite a big decision to make in itself. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and the 1984
their sort of biggest game from iOS, like that's quite something.
Yeah, he's taking the loss to leave much favorable terms to publishers throughout the industry. So like that is for sure appreciated and respected.
Yeah, 100%. One other thing, have you talked to many customers since the ruling, and are you still getting any sort of question marks over, you know, should we still do that? Is this okay, or is everyone like full steam ahead? Let's do this.
I think there's some hesitancy that we're seeing. I mean, legal teams are there for a reason, right? They have to
Yeah.
like dot the I's and cross the T's, and they have to make sure that this is fully compliant. I think that people are asking, hey, how long this is going to last? I think that some specific games that are especially dependent on organic discovery from Apple, like for being a featured app on the App Store,
Yeah.
they will not be so quick to port away transactional volume from the game, because that goes hand in hand and you getting featured, like you generating a lot of in-app purchase revenue for Apple. So I think like there are different like pockets of questions or hesitancy, but I've never seen this industry with this level of urgency since I started here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is unlike anything we've ever seen. Again,
Well,
those two beautiful words of
I was going to
effective
say
immediately.
everything goes back to those two words.
Yeah, it's here. There's an official Apple email to developers. This is now allowed.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
going to need more than that to at least get started with testing? And with
But
testing
and I
being
guess
so easy
like
to
I was
put
saying earlier,
together.
that it still opens, like, it is kind of that you cannot shut that door after you've opened it, because if you can start pushing people towards a web page for purchases anyway, that really, there's nothing going to stop them continuing going there afterwards. It's not like I find it very hard to believe Apple would actually be able to kill any third party web store that you may have or anything in order to be able to close that door effectively again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Interesting. Cool. Look, it's been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you so
Yeah, I
much
had
for
fun.
joining me at the very last minute. It was amazing.
Yeah, I had
um,
fun. Great
and
conversation.
beautifully ad hoc. So thank you very much. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Thanks for
Cool.
having me, Adam.
Cheers.